But when you get in this industry, anything and everything will happen. So if you want to bring innovation, I think definitely the right way to go is try and do it yourself and bring it to life. And then you'll see the interest right away from the big players. I know it always seems like a big leap to go and start your business and go into the entrepreneurship way. No, it's not. It's the greatest job on earth. And
thank you so much, Laurent, for coming on the show and doing something that is really different and really necessary for the food safety space. We talk about chemicals, we talk about prevention, we talk about all these different attributes, and you're doing something different. You're doing something that I think a lot of processors would really appreciate. So happy to learn more about that.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the invite. I'm really happy to be there and be able to bring something new forward and bring some science, well, deep science from really fundamental research to real life application and being able to bridge that gap in between. Yeah, happy to be able to talk on the show with you today and be able to, well, talk about food safety and how awesome it is, food safety. Most of the time when we talk about food safety, it's more a necessity or something that is not really exciting, but there's all stuff that all new innovation that's happening right now in food safety that makes it really important and fun and enjoyable as well.
Yeah, we're definitely going to be diving into that. And I think we're going to talk about you, but I think let's start with Innodal because there's a lot going on there and you're doing something really unique. So why don't you introduce it and tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So Innodal is a company that I started myself and my associate Francois now 8 years ago. So times goes pretty fast. Innodal, we were developing and we're producing natural antimicrobial for the food processing industry. So basically what we're doing, we're taking what we call bacteriocins. So bacteriocins are small protein produced by probiotic strain as a mean of defense in their environment. We extract those protein and then we'll apply them during the food processing step to act as a kill step in the food processing, well, the whole process, basically to get rid most of all of any pathogenic strain like Listeria, E. coli, Salmonella. Our goal is really to be able to protect first the consumer to not get sick, of course, of this type of contamination, but also to protect the food processor because it's one of the many dangers they face while processing. And where we saw that there was a gap is the fact that we're still using the same technologies that were being used 50, 60 years ago with the salt, sulfite, nitrate, whatever the typical preservative. And there was not much new innovation being done in that field. And on the other side, you have us as consumer who are just asking, I want everything that is organic, natural, without any additive. So it's kind of like an in-between where, yes, I want to keep the consumer safe, but don't leave me any options in terms of protecting my food. So how can we bring that natural aspect without having any being still efficient and I will never do the switch to a full natural organic if I'm more at risk as a processor or the product is more at risk. I want to make sure that both of them are there, natural and most of all efficient against those strains, basically.
Yeah, that's everyone wants as minimal the thing is you have to kill bacteria, but that means that it's not, you have to do some kind of processing step which can either ruin the product if it's like a kill step that's really hot, if it's not done properly. Chemicals can work, but then if you have too much of them, then all of a sudden that becomes its own safety risk in itself. So having other options, it's definitely something that the market needs.
Absolutely. And it's something they're all looking for. It was just finding, okay, so what's the right technology? What will be able to bring both? So what we've done in the last couple of years, our, let's say, big success until now was bringing our first technology, which is called Innodal. It's those little 10 ml vial, which are a liquid concentrate of a bacteriocin that will target specifically Listeria. So in this case, the bacteriocin is a pathogen. It will recognize a specific receptor on the surface of all type of Listeria. It will fix itself to the receptor, open the receptor, and then the bacteria will die by emptying itself. So it's really a targeted antimicrobial effect that brings a lot of value, because being so precise, the level of the dosage that I'm applying on the food product, we're talking at the ppb level, so part per billion level, so not at ppm level, really part per billion. So clearly at that level of concentration, I'm not changing the taste, color, texture, all the organoleptic qualities of the product will remain the same, because once again, the mechanism of action is that precise. And the other thing that is really, well, what was really interesting with having an antimicrobial that is from a protein nature is the fact that once I apply it on the food product, it will do its technical effect, will kill the bacteria right away upon application. But then in the next 24 hours, it will degrade into amino acid, leaving no trace in the product, because on all type of food product, you'll find protease. So those protease will at some point degrade the protein. And at the end, what I'm adding on the product are just amino acid that were already present on the food product at first. So I'm not adding something new on the product. And being able to prove that I had a punctual technical effect and then degradation was a game changer in the regulation, because now I wasn't an ingredient anymore. I was a processing aid. And a processing aid, what does it mean in terms of regulation? It means that you don't have to label the technology on your list of ingredients. And that, for the whole food processing industry, that's a game changer. Because in terms of ingredients, there's plenty out there of different type of extract of this and that. But if I have to change my whole labeling, it's another thinking in terms of marketing. How will the consumer will perceive that? So there's all these consideration. And the sad thing about, well, science is most of the scientists, they don't think about giving a cool name to their protein that will look nice on the list of ingredients. Most of the time, it sounds, well, it's going to sound chemical because, well, it's the scientific name of it, which kind of thing, well, if there's one thing I want to send to the scientific community, when you name a new compound, think marketing. You need to think of a cool name, because otherwise it's going to be a deal breaker for the end application, because it just doesn't, it has a weird name, basically. So for us, yeah, so for us, it was definitely the game changer part, to be able to be a processing aid and not having to be labeled on the list of ingredient. Well, now we're bringing absolutely something new. We pass from having tens of thousands of competitors to being maybe 5 guys worldwide to be able to bring that type of value on the market.
Wow, that's crazy. 2 things that come to mind in terms of questions is, so I guess Listeria is, I guess everything is made up of proteins. Well, not everything, but there's proteins. There's like, what is it about Listeria that makes it that you're able to target that specifically, rather than break down? It'll find some kind of protein within a chicken or something. Like, what makes that different?
Yeah, so great question. So most of the antimicrobial that we find on the market, most of them, the mechanism of action is based on oxidation. You create an oxidative stress that will basically kind of kill everything, because it's going to be oxidation that's going to trouble the outer cell membrane of any type of bacteria. Here, the main difference is you kind of have to sit, I'm weighing my word here, you kind of have to make the parallel to an antibiotic. It's going to recognize something really specific on the receptor, because because the probiotic strain, when it produces that protein, it's a defense mechanism. It's a defense weapon that the probiotic produce to get rid of any competition in its environment around it. So that's why it's so precise. And in this case, like, you can go really deep in science, but it's a 44 amino acid with 2 parts, and one part will specifically recognize a receptor that is universal on all type of Listeria. And the moment that the protein will recognize or just fix itself to that receptor, then the other part will just insert itself within the receptor and open the receptor. And I had a customer who was doing a great analogy where they said, well, the bacteria basically just spills its gut because it's wide open.
Yeah, good way to think about it.
Yeah.
And then as well with, okay, so I'm thinking about you showed me the little capsule that you have with it. How could you provide like, just for those listening so they can have like an idea of like, can you give an example of like a product or when we would see it during the line, like how this process, because I'm still a little confused at, is it sprayed on the production line? Is it sprayed when it's done? Like there's a lot of areas where Listeria could even form during maybe if something came from one ingredient. So just give us an example just so we can cement that together.
Absolutely. So you said it yourself really well. Listeria, it's everywhere. And the thing that you have to really remember and what the industry is learning right now is Listeria, in only 5% of the cases, it comes from the raw material. In 95% of the case, it comes from the environment of work. It will come from the manipulation, dicing, slicing, all the manipulation that would bring a risk of recontamination post your cooking step. So let's take the best example of that would be a ham product. A ham product would be cooked within an envelope, a plastic envelope. So it's fully cooked. There's no risk of contamination. Then it sits for maybe 1 week, 2 weeks. And after 2 weeks, then it's going to be sliced. But at that moment, you have a product that is almost sterile. I wouldn't go sterile, but pretty much sterile. And then you're just cutting a lot and you're creating a lot of surface of contact on something that is free of any bacteria. And you just need the one Listeria on that blade that would contaminate pretty much every slice of it. If you take the case of Maple Leaf in 2008, it was exactly that. It was a slicer, there was a contamination, and most of the time the slicer is the pinch point of your whole process. Everything will go through that slicer. So if there's a risk of contamination, it will basically contaminate everything in your production. So when we apply our technology, we're always trying to do the application as the very last step feasible before packaging. So when I'm the last step before packaging, I cover all the risks that came before. So all the manipulation that happened during the process that could cause a risk of recontamination, well, they're going to be killed, or the technology will kill it the moment before packaging. And once it's packaged, there's no risk of recontamination. And in terms of application, well, basically anything and everything is feasible. When we talk about ham product, so when we talk about meat product, a seafood product, where there's a defined surface to cover, we'll definitely spray it on the surface. So we'll add a spray at the slicer, and we'll use basically the blade as the mean of application throughout the slicing step. When we talk about cold smoked salmon, we'll spray the fillet right before the slicing step. We can even apply it as a soaking bath. So if you're doing leafy greens where the surface is really hard to get, it's really complex, or it's really hard to spray because you want to make sure that the full surface is covered. So you could add the technology within a washing bath, a soaking bath, to make sure that the whole surface is covered. And that's for any food that has a defined surface. But if you're making a mixture, a blend, a sauce, a smoothie, a pesto, or whatever that's a blend, well, you just pop it open and you pour it in and you cover the whole mass. You won't spray it. You want to make sure that the whole mass would be covered. And basically, those little vials, they're exactly what we do to make sure that they have the right concentration or the right dosage of use. We pre-dose them exactly for the batch size of the processor. So if my customer tells me I'm doing batches of 400 pounds, well, it's going to be pre-dosed exactly for 400 pounds. So the operator doesn't have to think. You just pop it open, pour it the whole content, and it's going to be always the right dosage. So it's our mean to make sure that, well, we get rid as much as possible of any human error in terms of dosage, basically.
Wow. The way you speak, it almost seems like, why hasn't this, like, why is this not already an industry standard? Because it sounds as though, again, you speak so simply about it, but it seems it makes logical sense that we should have an additional step that's able to kill it if it is present. Of course, there's the prevention step. You want to prevent as much possible, but in the case that it does happen, there's another step that can help kill it. So why do you think, I guess I should ask, like, how did this idea come to be? Because it sounds, it sounds like it should already exist, but yet there was a big, huge gap in the industry. So where did that idea come from?
So it's not my idea. It's been like upfront. When I came and I did my master's studies in food science at Laval University, I came in a research program where there was a couple of food processors all looking for that natural alternative. Before myself, there was two PhD students who work on the concept, work on the fundamentals. So I kind of arrived at the right timing where the proof of concept was there at a fundamental level. And now we would need it to showcase, well, is it feasible to bring it from lab scale to industrial level? And it's a hard bridge to make because, when you're in the lab, you control every factor, every variable is controlled. You're in a bubble that, like, you get rid of any external factor. But when you get in this industry, anything and everything will happen. You see. I've seen it all in terms of operation, in terms of let's put an ingredient. I'll put around this, and there's no precision at all. One of the big changes that we had to do was, okay, we need to make our technology easy to handle and robust, so that if there's variation, if it's not that precise in terms of application, it's still gonna work. I still got a buffer in terms of usage where I know it's gonna work. It's gonna handle all these external factors that could influence the end results.
You mentioned earlier that you are CEO of Innodal, but you're also co-founded with another. So how did that transition happen, that you started to think that I'm not maybe going to do a postdoc, or this idea is strong enough that I think it should be brought to market? Like, what was that process for you?
It was, so my background. So I've done a bachelor in biotechnological engineering. So it's kind of the science of using to do fermentation to create anything, vaccines, protein, waste management in water. So all those type of application. I've done that at the University of Sherbrooke, and during that bachelor, we had to do 5 internship in different companies to, well, get experience. And most of the experience that I got was in big companies, in the pharma industry, in the cosmetic industry, in the engineering and project management. And one thing that I felt each time was, yes, they're great company, big companies, and I learned a lot, but what's my real impact within that company? Like, I kind of felt a little bit like a number, and like I'm doing a project, but I never see the final results. So I kind of had this feeling that I don't see the final result. I don't see my accomplishment. For me, it was important. And I met one of my mentor and professor that really inspired me. His name is Denis Groslo. He's the kingpin of fermentation in Quebec. He was there at the very beginning of everything. So he's a good reference. And the first thing he told me was, there's a lot of research, there's a lot of innovation that are being done in universities, but they never see the light of day. They're just like, okay, it's got potential, but who's going to bring that to market? So he was the one saying, like, if you feel that way, you should try and find something new that a professor is doing, a researcher is doing, and try to bring that gap. So I've done that research, and then I met a professor at Laval University, Ismail Fils, who was working on natural antimicrobial. So right there, okay, there's potential there. But at the same time, I felt like, well, what are the odds that it's really gonna work? I'm just coming out of my bachelor, got no experience, just full of hope. So I started my master's just thinking, well, let's try it out. If it doesn't work, it won't work, but at least I've tried it. So when I started, it was, well, this one chance out of 1,000 it will work. And then after 6 months, there's potential, maybe a chance out of 100. And then more I did my experiments. Oh, shoot, it's working. Okay, one chance out of 50. And at the end, well, you know what? It's working. It's coming to life. So at the end of my master degree, well, there was one of the food processor there was saying, well, if you're able to do that, to produce this antimicrobial, like, can you do it, and can we buy it from you? I was like, yes, give me a month to write my essay, and then we start a business. So that's pretty much how it really started. Well, being like the right timing and being able to do that proof of concept. And of course, during that master, my master, I met François, who was doing his PhD in pharmaceutical science. And we realized basically two different labs, but we realized, okay, you know what, we're both producing protein and antimicrobial protein, two different ways. And right then it was a match, and we felt, you know what, we should really work together to make something new, and there's real potential there. So it really started from that need to see the impact of our work, to see the final results, and the way to do it and see it was, well, we got to start our own company, basically.
That's amazing, because a lot of people, when they start to do their research projects, they get really stuck with, well, what's this? Yes, it's cool to have like a fundamental understanding of the world, which a lot of people love, and that's what a lot of people go into. But to see that impact and then to be able to go through that journey and see as it's developing, I think that's a really exciting way to go through a PhD. Correct me if I'm wrong. It was a PhD you did, or master's? Sorry if I...
Master for myself and PhD for François.
But even with masters, like both of them, a lot of you do your project and you just kind of expect it to be a stepping stone, because many people just do it just to extend out their education. Some people do that.
Yeah.
Or other people are hoping that it's going to lead them to a postdoc position, and then they're going to become a professor, and then they're going to stay with that. But to even just shift the narrative that, oh, this research can be viable for potential market, and like having that in your brain even earlier on, that was seems like it'd be a good way to have insights for you to kind of push where we should move forward.
Well, and definitely I had already this mindset from the beginning. And one of the funny things during my master was, well, honestly, I really didn't want to write an article. For me, it was of no interest to do that. It's funny because most of the people like, you have to write like 3-4 articles. It's really important. I really didn't want to do that, and so the deal I had with my professor, with Ismael, my professor, was, you know what? If it works, I'm gonna start a company, and starting a company is gonna bring a lot more value to your research than publishing a paper. And if it don't work at all, then I'll write a paper about it.
Hey, that sounds like a win-win either way.
Hopefully, yeah, it did work. But it's one thing that most of the researcher, even the professor, have to keep in mind is the fact that most of the time they have kind of this mentality that it's publish or perish, and it's the only way to get funding. It's the only way to continue research. But being able to like create a spin-off, a company, that creates job, that creates sales, that create a lot more value and possibility of funding for this type of research than publishing. And most of the time, one of the thing that people miss out is the fact that, well, you know what, if it's interesting, you should try and maybe put a patent on the technology before publishing it, because once it's published, well, there's no opportunity to patent it. And so there's always the thinking that you have to be aware that it's a possibility, because it's going to change your whole journey throughout your research. To just always think about, well, what could be the final application, and could this be a patent, and would that bring interest to the market? Because it's going to bring a lot more option than just write a paper about it, basically.
I think it's good that you just put that into the world, and hopefully like those that are listening even have that idea, because I don't think people even think it's possible to even combine the two, that it's either you're in academia or you're in industry. Like you don't do this intermingling, but it sounds like you can also take your own path and really like forge to where you could move it after.
Absolutely. And I think we're a generation now that this possibility it's better than never before. Like, you've got this opportunity, and we see it a lot of time where they think that it's going to be the industry that's going to take this technology and move it forward. No, the company now, the big companies, they're just too big to do any innovation. It's too hard for them to do that. It's too much effort. And right now they're looking at the startup to create that innovation and then buy the technology from them. But it's going to be harder and harder for these big corporations to do any innovation. It's too big of a structure to really bring something innovative on the market. So if you want to bring innovation, I think definitely the right way to go is try and do it yourself and bring it to life, and then you'll see the interest right away from the big players.
Let's hear a word from our sponsor and partner of the podcast, CareersNow. Just like Laurent has been bridging the gap between academic research and the food industry, CareersNow is helping job seekers connect with Ontario's leading food and beverage processing employers. By signing up for a free CareersNow account, you'll gain access to exciting opportunities with top employers, along with valuable career tools like job fairs, mentorship sessions, and skills training. I highly recommend exploring their free Job Ready Skills training, which is a fantastic way to deepen your understanding of the industry and showcase your skills to potential employers. With 15 online self-paced courses available in multiple languages, it is a convenient and accessible resource to boost your knowledge and stand out in this competitive field. Whether you're starting your journey or looking to advance, CareersNow is an excellent platform to take the next step in your food and beverage career. Anyways, let's get back to the show. And did you find when you were doing, while we were at school, because we were saying about how it's like facilitated the journey, did you grow any skills that you found during that period of time that have helped you since you've moved from grad school and like you've been more involved? Why am I saying more involved with the company? You've always been involved. I should say you've switched roles. Now you're not a master's student doing the research. Now this is your company.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because you realize that when you're doing a master or a PhD, at the end, what you really acquired is a needle of competency. I was really good at producing bacteriocin class 2A, which is so niche as a competency, as an expertise. And the moment that I started the company, well, you just realize, well, I know nothing now at a company. I have to know about marketing, finance, HR, the corporate structure of a company. But that's the really exciting stuff about it. Is you just realize, okay, there's so much to learn now. Okay, and just putting, well, you need that background, that scientific background. And I'm so happy to have it because now I can talk science. But since in the last 8 years, I've done so little science and so much, well, entrepreneurship journey of, well, learning how to build a business and putting all those pieces together to make it work. So I think the fun starts really at that moment when you do the transition from your master. Well, on my side, it's really a personal view about it, but on my side, doing the science was a way to then be an entrepreneur and have this opportunity basically.
Right. It's still a unique thing in your tool set. And because you have that background, obviously you were involved in the research of it, you understand the product to very well.
Yeah, well, I must have, and it's still really important to be the one that really knows all the fundamental about it. But since then, today, I think I'm not even allowed to go in the lab anymore because I'm underqualified compared to my lab director, my whole team, or a lot more expert than I today.
And with that, do you mind me asking about other members of your team? Because maybe someone isn't ready, we've talked a lot about the entrepreneurship journey and starting your own business, but maybe there's someone who's just that really is not the path that I want to be involved in, but I want to be a part of this cutting edge research that's going to help. Are there, obviously you just talked about other team members, so what other roles are there that are involved, at least with Innodal?
Well, when we started to grow the company, we hired a lot of people from food science background because yes, we hired people from a microbiology background because we needed to have this really deep knowledge about microbiology, but our main application is applying antimicrobial in the food during the food processing. So we needed that expertise. So I think right now in our team, we have 3 members who did their food science bachelor, master, or PhD from McGill, from Laval, because they knew exactly what's involved in food processing, when, where, how will I apply those antimicrobial, because it's all factors and it's gonna impact the end results of our technology. Furthermore, like one of our production manager here, she's from a food science background, and she was the one to build our whole asset plan for our production facility. So definitely it was really valuable. And still today, we have a lot of education to do to the food industry to really explain like what's Listeria, why the need for it. So having people with food science background really helps to translate that value proposition to really help them understand why is that important, what kind of value will it bring to use that type of technology. So being able to, well, talk equal to equal because we're from the same background. So food scientists right now at Innodal, well, they take had different role in sales, in production, in R&D. So it's going to be pretty large, and we get them really involved because it's the very nature of our business.
It sounds surprising that you still have to do a large education piece to just even what Listeria is. Like, you would think food producers would be really on top. Like, of course, again, we talk about food prevention and that, but I guess a lot of the players that are coming to like the trade shows and that probably aren't the ones that are knee deep in the prevention pieces, so to say.
Right. Well, as I said earlier, like I see it all. There's the two extreme. There's the really well educated and aware of like what's Listeria, what's the prevention step that we need to put in place. And then at the same time, as in the same type of industry, and I've seen it in red meat processing, where I've got one customer who's really aware of it, really knows the importance of really having all the right step to protect their product. And you've got the other company, same level company, different, same type of production, and they're like, well, I never got Listeria, so of course I'll never get it, and knock on wood. It's like, no, that's terrible mentality. Don't knock on wood. Like, you don't leave food safety to chance and you just luck. No, it's taking the right step. So, but it's just a good reflection of our whole society where, well, there's going to be people who are going to be really involved and other, well, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen, and we'll see when we'll get there. So yeah, we see it all.
Wow, that's well, I guess right now, so with the business being where it is, so I guess you're kind of in the part where you're really promoting it, trying to get it involved. Is it currently out in any manufacturers right now?
Yeah, so the first type of customer that we had was seafood, because for the seafood industry, Listeria, it's a day-to-day struggle. They're really well aware about it. And in Canada, our seafood production, it's all exported to the US, to Europe, to Asia. Us as Canadians, we never consume our own seafood product. It's all exported. And most of the time when you export a seafood product, the regulation, it's tolerance 0 for Listeria. So they're all aware that they want to make sure that it's really there's never a chance that there's Listeria, because if there's one, well, it's your whole container who's going to bounce at the border. The FDA will put a red flag on it. So you really don't want that to happen. So right now, a lot of our customers are based on the East Coast, in Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick, and Quebec, that are, well, crab, lobster, salmon, cold smoked salmon industry, where at least it's really a day-to-day struggle. And then we've got new customer in Quebec and Ontario who does ready-to-eat products. So in type of pesto, smoothie, it's really large and diverse. It's really interesting. And the thing that is right now a game changer for us is that we just received our FDA approval last August. So really proud. Thank you very much. It's been a hell of a journey, a long journey. We had to be patient because it's a long journey to get this type of approval. But since we had this approval last August, the response from the US was incredible. And I don't know if you've seen the news in the last couple of 2 months, but the number of recalls for Listeria in the US just exploded. Cases like boarhead in the deli meats, bruise pack in ready-to-eat chicken product. There's been so many really large case of recalls, and everybody in the US are on their toes. USDA is just looking for Listeria everywhere. So clearly, like the timing was perfect because right now it's really a problem in the US.
Yeah, I always know when I see it on the mainstream because I have like my LinkedIn food safety sphere that like a lot of it I don't end up hearing it outside, but I know when it's a concern when I'm seeing it on the other social feeds that are not related to that they're talking about it and I'm like, wow. And there's so many, it's crazy how we're still getting so many of them now. Like I understand the process and why it's happening, but you know, it shouldn't be happening. Like there's so many people who care about it. So when the regular folk are just talking about it in conversation, you know that like something's going wrong when people are starting to get concerned about it.
Yeah, and it's a concern. And yes, you said it yourself. Like, how is that happening? Like, why is it still happening? Well, it's still happening because there's, once again, like we're still using old tools to work and prevent Listeria. But the one thing that is changing right now, it's the volume of production. It's getting more and more and more massive. So you can have your best sampling plan, prevention plan. At some point, you're going to lose control because the volume are just monumental. And when we talk about the US, well, it's 10 times the size of Canada. So you see that the risk that's always there because the volume are just enormous. So you can't sample everything and be sure that everything is safe. So it just pushes. So you have this pressure in terms of volume and the need to have something new to prevent that. So that's why, like for us, that's exactly what we're trying to address with the technologies, saying like the production is getting more and more massive. The technology that you're currently using, clearly they're not working because if they were, you wouldn't have this type of event. So we need something new. We need new innovation in that field.
That's a really good point with the volume. And thinking about like the future of Innodal, like you were focusing on Listeria, but I'm wondering, is there potential for it to go for other types of risks and different forms of bacteria?
Of course, for us right now, Listeria was the first one to get, and our main barrier, our main, let's say, thing that we had to approach was regulation. We really wanted to make sure that were we able to bring a protein as a processing aid, because we knew that, okay, that's our true value there, that's something different. Now that's been done in Canada and the US with our anti-Listeria technology, we've got a whole portfolio of other protein that have efficiency against E. coli, against Salmonella, against yeast and mold, that will be able to bring through the same regulatory pathway and bring them as well as processing aid. So we've got a technology against E. coli that's going to come up at the end of 2025 and the other for Salmonella in 2026. So happy to be able to continue to improve on that and be able to bring a full portfolio of solution and bring something, once again, efficient and natural in the same way.
Amazing. So right now we're just focused on building that customer base, getting custom solutions for each of them, which I can imagine in itself is like its own little challenges within.
Yeah, well, educate people, getting them aware that, well, it exists. It's something that's available right now. You don't look for it if you don't know that it exists. So that's really our challenge right now. It's really to promote it, to say, well, you know what? There's something new out there. There's options that you can use. So test it out. And well, that's our challenge and our goal right now is to be able to really bring something absolutely innovative and a new way of working in that food processing area.
Do you find when you have these conversations, because you can, when it comes to convincing someone, my understanding is that you can't just tell someone something and then all of a sudden they're like, you were right, correctly, I'm going to now do X, Y, and Z. Like that's just, it's not how it usually works. It usually takes people some time to think about it. Do you have any strategies that you use? Because that's something that a lot of students are, like a lot of like food safety professionals might struggle with, is that education piece and trying to make someone really truly understand about it. Do you have anything that you've learned maybe through this journey, or how you go to prospective customers that this is a product that would actually benefit you? Like we're talking about the person who's like, well, I haven't had it before, so this is not a concern. So do you have any strategies to help with that education?
I think so. Regardless of our technology, for any innovation, the one thing that any scientist gets wrong is that the fact that we're so excited about our technology, about the science behind it, but our final user they don't care. It's sad, but for them, it's just too scientific for them. They don't grasp the whole concept. And one thing that I've learned really fast, and that when we had coaches to do our pitch, our sales pitch, like how do I do my sales pitch, and they say you gotta make them aware of what's the problematic. Like you gotta love your problematic. So Listeria, the number of recall, like how important is that problematic? You have a solution, you say that in 10 seconds, and then what value will it bring? So our customer, they want to know, yes, how it works, but the thing that we really want to know is what kind of value will it bring to them, like how it's going to change their life, so they get more involved. They're going to know how it's going to directly impact their own operation, their own life. Myself, Laurent, as a quality manager, how will my life change using Ineo, using the technology? And that's what you got to bring in that pitch, is like, what's gonna be the end results? What kind of value will it bring? Like, what's gonna change in your whole industry? And now I understand. Okay, now I'm involved, and now I understand like where this technology is gonna bring me. And once I'm interested and I know the end result, then we'll come back to the how it works. And now I'll get interested of the how it works. You keep the how it works at the very end when they're hooked. But the thing that will hook them is the moment that they know like what will change in my life once I start using this. Now they get involved.
Okay, I guess it's even kind of comparison where it's like if someone wants to be healthy, you don't tell them you need to eat this many vegetables, X, Y, and Z. It's like if you have vegetables, you're going to feel healthier. And then when they're like sold on that idea, it's come in and say, okay, this is how we're going to do it.
Yeah, eat your carrots. Now you know how to do it. But yeah, you gotta bring that final value that, you know, the moment that you're gonna healthy, you're gonna be able to do sport, you're gonna have your 6-pack. Okay, now I'm hooked. Now I'm ready to get involved and do the hard work to integrate that new technology or diet in this case. Well, it's a great question. Well, I would say, yeah, of course, I have more. It's easier for me to speak, to be passionate. I am passionate about it. I think one thing that I really worked on, and when we worked on the pitch, on the sales pitch, I've done all the contest of your thesis in 360 seconds, and being able to really condense what you're trying to say, like what's a key word that people want to hear, like really work on that pitch. Like when I do a presentation, when I do a sales pitch, what's my final goal? What's the one thing I want them to remember, and really think about that and work about that. So yes, it's easy for me to, let's say, do a public speech because I'm not necessarily shy, but it's still a lot of work to, well, have a coherent or interesting discussion, and that it's not gonna go. It's gonna be random conversation. No, I know exactly where I want to bring the people. I know exactly what's the end conclusion that they'll remember. So that's the thing that I'm always working on during the pitches. When I'm going to see a customer, I do my research before, so I know exactly where they're at, what they're looking for. We don't waste time. I'm not doing just pitching all of data that are irrelevant. I select one data that is relevant for them, and we focus on that. So it's really getting that focus speech so that they're interested from the start.
Okay, well let's close off, and we'll try to take off with what you're saying with two questions. Well, one's an easy one for you, but let's just summarize the whole thing. If for those who are looking to go into a field that's similar to yours, or if you have general advice for any of those listening, what would your advice be?
Honestly, I know it always seems like a big leap to go and start your business and go into the entrepreneurship way. No, it's not. It's really easy. You gotta just have the little being a little bit naive of what it will take to start your business. But at some point, I think it's the greatest job on earth. And when you're a student, and that's the path I took, I started my business right at the start, like right at the end when I finished my studies, because I was already in debt. I didn't have a salary. I didn't taste, let's say, comfort of having a real job. So, well, being in debt might as well be more in debt. It's the right thing to do. The people that I really admire is the people that have a 10-year career and then decide to drop everything and start the business. Wow, that's a leap of faith, because they've tasted the salary, they've tasted their having a home, having all that comfort, and then they drop everything and they say, you know what, I'll start my own business. Wow, that's a big leap to take. So if there's one thing I want to say to any student in the scientific field, it's the right timing. It's the perfect timing to try it right away, because you didn't taste comfort yet. It's the perfect timing to take risk, and at the end, you know what? It's rewarding in all type of way.
That's really good advice, and yeah, hopefully maybe it might make someone think differently, because I know it can be. I've never started a business, but I find it very scary. So I could imagine that many other individuals. But maybe it is the right time, right when you're after school, you are in debt. Why not go into more? But the point is that you're going to eventually be that it's not it. You're passionate about going in and you have an idea and growing that. So that is a goal worth going for. And the last question I'm going to ask you is, where can people find you in Innodal?
Absolutely. I think, well, two ways to find us. So website, www.innodal.com, INNODAL.com, or on LinkedIn, Innodal. You'll find us. That's where we're the most active, and you see all the news, the scientific stuff, all our the prize that we win, the innovation that we bring. I think the best way to follow us will be on LinkedIn.
Perfect. And thank you so much, Laurent, for coming on the show, sharing what you did. I think that a lot of people, again, might not think it's like, if I go into a master's program, I'm either going to be pure academia or I'm just going to go in a big company, but there's other options available to them.
Totally. Go and start businesses. If there's one thing to remember, go and start your own business.